Euthanasia for the mentally ill beginning in March of next year. That's not a Nazi move or anything. Well, actually, it is.
Canada's assisted suicide policy is one of the most horrifying dystopian programs in modern history.
It's okay to pass away today. It's okay to pass away.
It always starts with pain, and usually elderly. Now, Canada has now started execution of people that are mentally unstable or in so much pain that they can't afford to live anymore.
Last breaths are sacred. When I imagine my final days, I see bubbles.
Have you exhausted all medications and therapies to combat the suffocating thoughts? Do you suffer from a terminal illness, severe mental health disorders, or just a chronic substandard of living? Then it's time for Ascension.
This government has moved forward with a careful mindset of both upholding Canadians' fundamental rights and protecting the most vulnerable. That's what the Supreme Court decision demanded that we do as a government.
The woman from British Columbia has lost her court fight for the right to have a doctor help her kill herself.
In the future.
Sue hopes that Parliament will deal with this issue once it reconvenes after the election. She realizes that it may be too late for her, but for all other Canadians who are in a similar predicament, this issue should be resolved in Parliament.
Thank you. Lee Carter et al. Versus Attorney General of Canada. Lee Carter et al. Versus Attorney General of Canada et al. Again.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with a seismic legal shift on an issue that could one day affect all of us. The Supreme Court has struck down the law banning doctor-assisted suicide. It means Canadians who are suffering unbearably at the end of life will have a choice about how they die. Polls show the majority of Canadians want that choice, and though the Harper government never wanted to reopen this debate, now it is being forced.
Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying, or MAID program, is a tale of deceit, manipulation, and the sinister orchestration of euthanasia, and it was from its very inception. The story began back in 2016, when MAID first emerged onto the public stage. It was cloaked in the guise of compassion for the terminally ill, but that's not where it remained. Beneath this veneer of benevolence lurked a dark agenda, a plan carefully crafted to pave the way for something far more sinister. Presented as a flagship demonstration of progressivism by the new Liberal government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying, was nothing short of a political chess piece, wielded to distinguish itself from its conservative predecessors. Bill C-14, the law that legalized medical assistance in dying in Canada, was introduced the same year, 2016. It marked the beginning of this descent into darkness, following the precedent-setting Carter v. Canada case, which challenged the Criminal Code's prohibitions on physician-assisted suicide. But the seeds of malevolence were sown long before, in the dying days of the Harper government, where a panel was convened to study the new legal landscape. Despite warnings and calls to uphold the sanctity of human life, the stage was set for a disturbing evolution of medical assistance in dying. A transformation from a program initially meant to serve the terminally ill in their very last days to a checklist of lives deemed expendable by bureaucratic machinery. Under the guise of compassion, eligibility criteria were relaxed. Wait periods were all but eliminated, and safeguards were completely ignored. The acceleration of Canada into a culture of death was as swift as it was systemic, with medical-assisted deaths skyrocketing year after year after year. Yet the true extent of the horror remains concealed, masked by euphemisms and bureaucratic deceit and games playing with statistics. Behind closed doors, MAID recipients, perhaps victims, isolated, the vulnerable, the marginalized, are all treated as mere commodities, with often their organs harvested and celebrated as a macabre achievement. But the darkest chapter is yet to come, as Canada prepares to expand medical assistance in dying to include those suffering solely from mental illness. Justifications are offered, euphemisms are employed, but make no mistake, this is not an act of kindness, but a calculated process of euthanizing the inconvenient, of tidying up wait lists and bureaucratic inefficiencies. Canada, once heralded for its socialized medical system, now stands as a cautionary tale, a warning to others of the dangers when the government assumes control over healthcare decisions. Personal freedoms are sacrificed, access denied, suffering ignored, and then foisted upon the families, all in the name of expediency. These are the stories of the families left behind, of the susceptible, the manipulated, and the endangered, and the people desperately fighting to save them. This is MAID, the dark side of Canadian compassion.
Canadians are obviously extremely seized with this issue. It's a deeply personal issue that affects all of us in our families and all of us individually as we approach the end of our lives. And this government is focused very much on respecting Canadians' rights, on defending their choices and allowing them choices, while at the same time protecting the most vulnerable in society.
Well, my brother, Glenn Sterling, was a chiropractor and a health and fitness addict all his life. He used to be one of the top 5 marathon runners in British Columbia. And he'd been working overseas. He returned from overseas and seemed not well. He told us that he'd had a stroke, but his symptoms were not really those of a stroke. So we got him into assessment. It did take a while. And this was in 2016 when they first agreed to open MAID for people, medical assistance in dying.
This is a response to the Supreme Court decision that will have a positive and significant impact on the lives of Canadians and how we move forward in a thoughtful, respectful way.
He kept falling down a lot, just from out of the blue. So that's not necessarily a sign of a stroke. And he had bad perception of like where to sit. He would sit forward of a chair and bump into walls, and had some facial paralysis. So ultimately, the doctors at the Foothills Neuro Center found that he had PSP, which is parasupranuclear palsy. It's a very aggressive form of Parkinson's. He didn't want to live that way. He was deteriorating fairly rapidly, even though he got very, very good care. His own doctor, his own GP, would not approve the MAID choice, I guess. But the system found him a couple of other doctors to see. So he had to meet with a couple of psychiatrists. He had to meet with a couple of doctors. We met several times as a family with the doctors at the Foothills Clinic, and they were all excellent people, very compassionate. No one was trying to push him into MAID. This was strictly his decision. And we also had a couple of social workers come by to meet with him. They are retired social workers, but they're part of the MAID assessment program. We met with the MAID doctor beforehand, several weeks beforehand, and she talked with him and with me. And then, there was quite a waiting period. And it wasn't clear that he would be approved, because even though his condition is ultimately terminal, many people live 8 or 12 years with this condition, but usually with in a wheelchair and with a feeding tube, and he didn't want that. His life was becoming very humiliating. He could navigate independently, but he'd often fall down. He couldn't speak properly anymore. So apparently he told me that he was getting kicked out of stores where people thought he was drunk, and he couldn't explain that he was sick. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine, for someone who, used to do Ironman and marathons, and triathlons, and who'd always believed in the power of the body to heal itself. This was just a tremendous humiliation and agony. So ultimately, he was approved for MAID. We did manage to get him to a reunion of his friends the weekend before, and we were able to be with him. It was in a care center where they brought us a very nice breakfast, so we had a Last Supper together, if you like, and even gluten-free for him, which was very thoughtful, but he even noticed the irony of that. But this whole process probably took 7 months, easily, and you could back out at any time, even at the time of the doctor approaching him, asking a few questions to make sure that he was in his right mind and aware of what was going to be done. But he wanted to go ahead with it. So the doctor administered these medications that slow you down, put you to sleep, and then stop your heart. So for the patient, I guess it's painless. And, for us it was painful, but it's, I think that it was what he wanted. But what's happening now, I think, is a travesty. And I think I saw this after COVID hit, or in the midst of COVID. I realized that this kind of health care would never be available to anyone again.
Northern Health says there are 5 permanent registered nurses staffing the ER, which should run on 20 nursing positions. In some cases, there may be just one nurse available on a given shift.
You put your loved one in a home, counting on them to take care of your loved one. It's just terrible.
People who were laid off were more likely to be female, younger, working in less secure, lower-paying jobs. In other words, those who could least afford it.
There's new hope tonight for Canadians suffering with intolerable pain. A bill expanding access to assisted death has received royal assent. Those who aren't near their natural death now have the right to seek medical assistance in dying.
Under the new law, intolerably suffering Canadians who aren't near death become immediately eligible. It also removes a requirement that patients be able to give final consent at the time of their death. The new law requires people not facing imminent death undergo a 90-day assessment before a medically assisted death can be accessed.
I want to talk to you about the families and the family involvement. We will be speaking to somebody whose brother used MAID during the original protocols. His death was imminent. He was experiencing a fatal condition. And there was a lot of family involvement. The families were interviewed. They wanted to make sure there was no coercion, that their brother was of sound mind. It was almost a global assessment of the patient. But that really doesn't happen anymore.
No, I would say most MAID assessors, in their own words, are more comfortable with the process and feel that they can make those decisions quickly without family involvement, without asking wider questions. I had one doctor who was working with a patient. He had a really tough backstory. His wife had been murdered. She died in his arms. And because of that, he had addictions and had a very challenged relationship with his daughter. Now he had a disease that was going to kill him, not imminently, but sort of within a year. And so she was working with him to try to bring him and his daughter closure in their relationship. She went away for a 2-week vacation. She came back, found out he'd gone to the hospital for another reason, and they euthanized him. And she was just devastated. She had no chance to bring healing to him. And because the hospital charts had looked, oh, you have this other condition, let's not treat you for what you've come for, let's just end your life.
When the law was changed to permit euthanasia done by doctors, a lot of people said, okay, this is great, this is compassion, it will be there to help the people who are suffering in the last moments of their life. But you saw something different coming down the pipe.
Well, right from the beginning, I recognized that our legislation was actually wider than the Netherlands and Belgium, because that's legislation I knew very well, and how our law had no definition in it. So right off the bat, I knew we had a problem. And before, of course, it was even legal, when they were debating the legislation, I was sending constantly to the members of parliament my comments, emailing, letters, etc., saying, you can't pass a bill that does not define things like your natural death must be reasonably foreseeable, does not define what an irremediable medical condition is. You know, the whole, if you go through it section by section, it lacks definition. So what happens then is the law becomes defined by its practice. So the doctor or the nurse is willing to kill you, they're the ones actually defining the law, because your law wasn't defined in the first place. And you can't define it afterwards by practice guidelines, because there's nothing in the law that actually would, how would you say, create a situation where you're compelling a doctor to follow those guidelines. There's nothing there to say, you must do this and you must do that. And so in reality, it's pretty crazy what we've done in our country.
So let's talk about the law itself. It's really just an exemption to the criminal code.
Correct.
So that doctors cannot be prosecuted for providing euthanasia.
That's exactly, yeah. Yeah, so euthanasia is a homicide, and our criminal code defines it as a homicide, and it defines it as an exception to homicide. What makes it very scary, though, is it gives doctors and nurses the right in law to kill you, so long as they've signed off, so long as they've examined you and signed off, they can absolutely kill you. And that's how the law is designed. And it's actually a little bit wider than that, but I'm not even going to get into some of the things of the law because they haven't come to pass yet, so I'm sort of happy about that. But go further. You cannot even prosecute a doctor for something that you absolutely know is wrong, because the law says the doctor only, or the nurse, only have to be of the opinion the person fit the criteria of the law. Well, obviously speaking, when you've been injected with poison and you're dead, They were of the opinion you fit the criteria of the law. Whether or not you did or not is a whole other issue, but it doesn't matter, the law has covered them. It's the perfect homicide law to give them free ability to kill you.
Now, where do we fit in internationally speaking? You talked about Netherlands. It took them 20 years to get to where they are, where they're contemplating now euthanizing people who are just done with life. They already euthanize mature minors. It seems like Canada's on an accelerated path to there.
So Canada has gone very quickly from being legalizing this to being the worst in the world. And there is no happiness there. The only good thing about it is there's been enough shock internationally that places like the UK, which are debating euthanasia, and Scotland and Ireland and all these other countries, they're really starting to hold back, and they're looking at this thinking, oh, wait a second here, maybe we have to look at this again before we actually consider moving on this, because we don't want the Canadian scenario. But in 2015, you might remember our government saying, it's not going to be like the Netherlands and Belgium and Canada. We're not like that in Canada. As much as I was telling them, well, your bill actually is pretty wide open, and it actually has language in it which is far wider than the Netherlands and Belgium have, it didn't matter. They were saying, we're not going to have that. We're different here. Well, obviously that wasn't true. And if you start thinking more and more about what human nature is, if you allow something to be because of how human nature is, it will be. It will happen. And that's exactly what's going on.
Michelle's story is so important because it shows exactly how medical assistance in dying was initially sold to the Canadian public. It was meant just for the terminally ill. But all that changed when the disease of rationed healthcare caught up to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. The burden of COVID to the public healthcare system and willing doctors able to euthanize people for any reason, and a governing party with no respect for human life, meant that MAID quickly morphed into something else, something evil. The law permitting euthanasia expanded to include those without terminal illnesses, which resulted in the horror stories that follow.
And now the RCMP have launched a criminal investigation into the questionable MAID death of a BC woman who suffered from depression. And until now, not a word of concern from the Prime Minister.
Donna Duncan's death has also sent shockwaves among advocates for people with disabilities and mental illness. Now, in a rare move, police are investigating the case.
It was a relatively minor car accident that would change the course of Donna Duncan's life.
She was the rock of our family, and she was this playful, fun, whimsical person. She believed in fairies and unicorns. I don't know if she really did, but she made us believe that she did, and she was just magical wherever she went. She really spread joy and really believed in people and humanity. She was the psychiatric nurse, devoted her career to helping people with mental illness, and she was a really fun mom. She was a really fun mom. She was a really fun grandma to my kids.
That's Donna's Christmas present! I wanted to get her something she'd use every day.
So in February 2020, my mom was in a minor car accident and suffered a concussion. We really didn't think much of it at the time. My young daughter was in the car, and she was totally fine. And a month later, we went into COVID lockdown, and her symptoms were progressively getting worse. So typical concussion symptoms. She had sensitivity to looking at screens, to sounds, to light, and she, through whatever treatment she could get at the time because of the lockdown, she did see a little bit of progression. So over the next few months, she was able to look at screens a little bit again. She was able to drive her car again a little bit, but by that fall, the COVID restrictions tightened and she became isolated. Of course, she couldn't see friends and family because of the restrictions. And we really didn't have as much contact with her anymore. We couldn't FaceTime her because, of course, she couldn't look at screens. She had trouble texting because, of course, again, looking at screens. And so our communication was really limited, so we didn't really know how bad things were getting. After, I guess it was around Christmas time, that we saw her and realized that she had lost an extreme amount of weight, and we started asking questions. You know, are you eating enough food? What's going on? So we realized that her doctor had been testing her for anything really to rule out what could be causing this weight loss. Everything from fibromyalgia to, I mean, they tested her for parasites, for HIV, for cancer, and they couldn't find anything that was wrong. And we started speculating that maybe there was some sort of mental illness at play. A few months after that, we started coming in weekly for care to help her, her common law partner out, to help with, you know, meal prep and those kind of things. And it was really irrational, the things that she was doing. So, for example, she was severely limiting her diet. You know, I had to pick up a specific organic chicken from a certain grocery store. She would call ahead, order certain spices, and everything had to be pureed, everything. So she was making soups. She claimed that it hurt to swallow food. And, you know, so we were pushing, like, maybe you should go get an MRI. Maybe you should go outside of Canada. Maybe, you know, my mom had the means to do it. Like, I was pushing her, maybe we should go to the Mayo Clinic. Let's try to figure these things out. And she was very upset about that. And it was very unlike my mom to be so upset about those kind of things. She was a very rational person, obviously being in the nursing field. It just seemed bizarre that she would be so resistant against this sort of treatment. What we didn't know is that she had already been looking into the MAID program.
I called my sister and I said, like, this, we need to go talk to mom. So we kind of went there and we were going to do an intervention. And we got there and her husband said, it's not as bad as you think. We're going to go talk to your mother. So we all went upstairs and he said, you need to tell them the truth of what's going on. And my mom said, what about MAID? And when she said MAID, I actually thought she was talking about cleaners coming into the house, because I know she'd been having troubles with housework and that sort of thing. And I'd been pressing her to get a care aide or someone in to help her. But they never went into what MAID was. And then that was at the point that we were told that she'd gone to the hospital because she thought she was dying. She'd been diagnosed with psychosomatic disorder, was put on antipsychotics. And they said, and her husband said, he's now taking over the treatments. He'll be giving her the medication. And they were waiting for a psychiatrist appointment 2 days later. The next text message we got was, your mom spoke to the psychiatrist. She's not psychotic. And we're back to making her comfortable. Then we got a text message about a MAID support group for family members. And her spouse said, we don't think it's at this point yet, but your mom wants you to be prepared. And at this point, we still didn't know anything about MAID. And that's when we kind of started panicking and what is going on? And then it was, we were told, we don't know if your mom is eligible for this because what she has isn't one of the conditions that MAID accepts. And then it was, your mom's been assessed, she's been accepted into the program, things may move quickly from here. That was a Friday. The Sunday, a second doctor was coming to assess her. I went there on the Sunday, and my mom told me she'd been approved and had requested to die in 48 hours.
So just a matter of days.
Days.
You must have been frantic.
We were. I had actually been away, and so I had been receiving these text messages. I flew home, and 20 minutes after walking in the door, Christy messaged me and said, "I've just left Mom's house, and she's going to die on Tuesday." So we went into crisis mode. My sister called the police for a wellness check. And so we drove to her house and waited on the road while the police went up to speak to her. But because all of the MAID paperwork was in place, there was nothing that we could do. So we spoke to the police, and the police said, all we can do is enforce the law. You need to get a court order. You need to get a court order. So this was Sunday night around 9 p.m. We spent the rest of that evening, we called one of my mom's best friends, who was also a retired psychiatric nurse, and we worked through the night, putting together a case to prove that my mom's mental capacity should be questioned. Because of the car accident and because of my mom's limited capability looking at screens, I had actually been going through with her and keeping a record of all of the medications that she had tried, the duration, the dose, her, what she had been experiencing because of these medications, so why she had stopped it. And I really could prove that she was not following through with any of her doctor's recommended treatments for depression, anxiety, and really, like, my mom was starving herself. Because she was limiting her diet so severely. She was around 80 pounds. Thank goodness, whatever I said spoke to the judge, and he granted us the warrant for her arrest under the Mental Health Act. From there, she was taken to the hospital that evening for psychiatric assessment. There was no psychiatrist on staff at the time. So they deemed that she was not a risk to herself because she wasn't suicidal. She had just applied for MAID, which are different things under the law. And so they sent her home with the condition that further assessment would be done the following morning. So the following morning, a psychiatrist called my mom on the phone, so they didn't see her in person. And after that conversation, because I was the one that was granted the warrant, I was able to speak to the psychiatrist afterwards. And he told me that he had found our mom to be sound of mind. And I said to him, I said, you are a doctor and you have taken an oath to do no harm. And if you find my mom to be sound of mind, she will die. And that blood will be on your hands. And he said to me, I am legislated to ask a certain number of questions. And if a person understands the implications of their actions, essentially, they are found sound of mind. So I knew that the psychiatrist used to work with my mom. I knew this, and I said to him, I know you know who my mom is, and I know you know what she used to be like. If you could see her in person, you would know that she is not sound of mind, and because she is a psychiatric nurse, she knows everything to say to be made sure that she is found sound of mind because she is suicidal. And so we ended the phone call, and I let my sister know that she was going to die. We went to her house that evening to say goodbye, and her common law partner let us know that she was so devastated because the psychiatrist had come back with the assessment saying that she was found to be sound of mind. However, the MAID procedure had to be postponed until further assessment could be done. And she was so devastated that she slit her left wrist and was found on the bathroom floor and had been taken to the hospital about half an hour earlier. You went, I think I went again the next day. I brought my daughter so they could speak and we could spend some time with her. And we just really talked about, you know, what treatment might look like at that point. And she, you know, made us feel like she was kind of resigned to the fact that she was going to be there for a while. You know, I asked her if she wanted to be transferred, and she said, no, this hospital's okay. You know, it's near the river where my partner likes to fish, and so he can easily come visit me. And it was October, you know, so, you know, we assumed, you know, she's planning for the summer, like she might still be here. And we thought, okay, wow, like she's really committed to her treatment now. The next day you went to go visit her. So this was 48 hours after she had initially been admitted.
And she had said the same thing. She's like, I've done assessments, I'm of sound mind, I don't have early Alzheimer's. And she seemed really excited about that. And I said, okay, well, what's the plan from here? And she said, there is no plan. And I said, okay, well, when are you going home? And it was actually another patient that had said, oh, it's so great that you're going home today. And my mom kind of gave her a look like she wasn't going to tell us that she was going home. And so I asked her, well, when are you going home? She said around 2:30. And that was the last time I saw her.
Both of our partners got a text message that evening from my mom's common law partner to let us know that our mom was dead. I called the coroner, and she called me back, and the coroner said to me, there is a very, very small chance that MAID would have proceeded within hours of someone being released from a psychiatric unit. I would be very, very surprised.
So did it happen at home then?
It did.
At her home.
And she administered the medication herself?
No. A nurse practitioner came to the house.
Did this nurse practitioner know her?
He was one of the assessors.
He'd never met her in person before, though.
He assessed her on the phone, and he was the one that came to the house and lethally injected her.
Within hours of her being released from a psychiatric hospital for a suicide attempt? Correct.
Yes, within 4 hours of being released.
I just want some sort of accountability, that someone needs to be held accountable for this and just bring more awareness. And yeah, I think that's the goal at the end of the day.
On this day, they're heading to a meeting with Abbotsford police, who've been investigating Donna's death, how and why she was approved for MAID.
I'm emotionally prepared for the worst, but I do think that the evidence speaks for itself. We got this. We'll have answers soon.
Yeah, exactly.
To them, the evidence is clear. A year and a half before she ended her life, Donna was in a car crash, diagnosed with post-concussive syndrome. The deterioration that followed, they believe, was less physical than psychological, the combined effects of COVID isolation and depression.
We had just gone through 5 days of hell trying to keep my mom alive, and then to find out that we had fought so hard to keep her alive, and it was for nothing. And I didn't know what to do, so I ordered an autopsy, and we just sat and waited.
And we filed, I filed complaints with the College of Physicians. The College of Physicians said what we were accusing the doctor of was criminal in nature, so we needed to have a police investigation. So again, it was around, so February now 2022, so this has been a few months.
She died on October 29th, so for timeline. So October 29th, 2021, she died. And it was February that we built a case. So this was after, as the executor, I had her medical records released to me. We reviewed her medical records, and in comparing to the vital statistics records, we started noticing gaps. It didn't make sense. My mother had never been diagnosed with central sensitivity syndrome, which was listed as one of the conditions on her assessment. She was listed as cachexia, which is severe muscle deterioration. There's blood work that you can do to prove that. She had blood work done in the hospital 2 days before she died. I didn't see any record of proof that she was cachetic. I mean, she was also, frailty was the third condition. She obviously was frail. She was starving herself. So MAID has track 1 and track 2. We assumed because she died within a 10-day period that she had been approved under track 1. And in that, you have to be suffering an intolerable condition where death is reasonably foreseeable. And we just didn't understand how central sensitivity syndrome, which is really like an umbrella term for fibromyalgia.
Right.
You're not facing imminent death when you have that. She was frail, but she hadn't been getting feeding tubes. She was refusing treatment. We didn't understand how that could be. So we felt she was wrongly approved. And even if she had been approved under track 2, which is death is not reasonably foreseeable, so something like central sensitivity syndrome where you're suffering intolerably to you, but death isn't reasonably foreseeable, you have to be assessed by a doctor who's a specialist in that condition. She had an appointment to go see a specialist for that, and she never made it to the appointment. It was 2 weeks after her death. So we couldn't comprehend how my mom could have actually been approved. And we brought this information to the police and they agreed. And it launched the first investigation into a MAID death in Canada.
They spent 9 months gathering information. And basically what happened is they were stonewalled by Fraser Health.
So to date, we have spent over $41,000 retaining the top law firm in Canada to get these assessment records from Fraser Health. And they have essentially said that we don't have enough evidence to prove that what we're looking for is going to be in the assessment records, therefore they don't agree that we should be able to have these. And I know that they have the ability to give those records to me because other family members have reached out and they have requested their families made assessment records and they've been given the records. We feel like we're being punished because we're speaking openly about it. And the definition of a cover-up is if you hide information and it stops an investigation, that's a cover-up. Fraser Health is refusing to give information, and because of that, the police investigation had to close. Therefore, Fraser Health is covering information up.
I'm announcing today that Fraser Health is requiring the 365 days notice to end their service agreement with Delta Hospice without cause.
Hello. So we're going to go down to the office now. And the office that we have now is, you'll see it's about 200 square feet. And that is where we've been relegated from our 7,500 square foot supportive care center that we were evicted from because we refused to kill our patients. So now please join me and we're going to go to our underground bunker. The underground bunker, returning to the catacombs. It's a maze. Hi, guys. Come on in.
Even the buildings themselves sit on Fraser Health land at a lease rate of $1 a year.
Angelina, tell us about Delta Hospice before where you are now.
So the Delta Hospice Society is a 30-year palliative care organization, a private society that about 15 years ago fundraised $8.5 million to build a palliative care facility. And with that money, we purchased custom built a 10-bed palliative care facility in Ladner. And next to it, a 7,500 square foot supportive care center. And in those two buildings, we did what our work was, to protect people, to take care of them when they're ill, to help them through a cancer journey, to help them through bereavement. And in fact, that is how I became part of the organization. I walked in one day as a cancer patient and needed support on my journey. And I walked in about 10 years ago and I never left. So they helped me tremendously get through that. Surgery, chemo, radiation, and then about a year's worth of adjuvant therapy, and then like 6 years worth of, pills every day, right? So, tremendously difficult from my personal perspective, but an organization like this one was there to help me through that. And when I got back to good health, I thought, I want to be part of this organization, right? I want to be able to help other people too. So I went onto the board of directors for 6 years. In the last 4 years, I've been the president of the organization. When palliative care was honored, we were the jewel of the community. Everybody loved us. The government wanted to partner with us because we were a hospice and palliative care organization. Fast forward, 10 years later, they want nothing to do with us because we're a hospice and a palliative care organization. So, the presidency that I've had here has been 100% just taken up with promoting palliative care. And that does not mean, having anything to do with MAID, with medical assistance in dying, because authentic palliative care, which is a 50-year medical discipline, does nothing to hasten death. And MAID, or as they call it, which is basically euthanasia, prematurely ends someone's life. So the Delta Hospice Society wanted nothing to do with participating in this government euthanasia program.
Now, one of the things we hadn't really given any thought to as we were approaching this documentary was the physical act of euthanizing an individual. What can you tell us about what that entails, the drug cocktail administered to the person?
There's a sedative given to relax the person, a sedative given to stop their breathing, and then another lethal injection to stop the heart.
And we actually don't know all that much about the experience of the, how could we? They're gone, but we don't really know what the person experiences as they die. We just know at the end that they're dead.
Right. Some of the drugs they use are the same drugs they use in executions in the US. And we know that those executions have been stopped because they were considered cruel and unusual punishment. So we don't know. I think the other thing that is challenging is it can be very abrupt for the family. If they're, we talk to family members who say it's really hard to know that your dad's gonna die in 2 weeks, then 10 days, then 5 days, then 15 minutes, and then he's dead. And so it can leave huge grief and fracture families after the death.
So what were the consequences then for the Delta Hospice Society? Because you have this incredible building that has been built without a penny in taxpayer dollars, and that's not where you are today. Today we are, as you described it on our way down here, in the bunker. This is where the Delta Hospice Society operates out of. How did you end up here?
Well, when we refused to participate in MAID because it went against what authentic palliative care was, and we are a palliative care organization, that wasn't met with a kind response. When we built this building, the buildings that we had, we got a 35-year land lease. And upon that land, we built the buildings. And when we were finished with the buildings, we got into a public-private partnership with the Fraser Health Authority. And they gave us $1.5 million a year by the time it ended in exchange for the 10 palliative care beds. And the other building that we had and the programming that we did, we paid for that ourselves. So when we refused to participate in MAID, and I'll also let you know, we were among the last, hospice standing that refused to participate, the government canceled our service agreement. So we were out the $1.5 million to operate the hospice. But, we were fine with that, actually.
You could have fundraised that.
Absolutely. We had no problem because, we are a sanctuary for the dying. 10 beds that we would open to the country. And we would, make sure that they were safe, that no one would ever speak to them about MAID or euthanasia, and that they could live out their life in peace, tranquility, security until their natural end. So when we said that was fine, they could have the funding, they came back to us that not only would we be not getting any more funding, but we'd have to get out of our buildings.
The province insists these 10 beds aren't going anywhere. They'll stay in Ladner, just administered differently.
So they took your buildings without compensation.
Right. So they took the lease with 25 years left on that land lease, and they canceled it. They essentially evicted us from our buildings because we would not participate in this government euthanasia program. And no one is allowed not to participate in this program. So we were packing, they gave us 30 days to get out. And then they went over to the hospice and they evicted our patients.
Your dying patients.
The dying patients in their bed, they told them that they would also have to leave. And I have which I'm going to provide to you, the letter that was passed out to all of our patients. And they had about 3 months and they were going to have to get out. So the health authority would move them somewhere else. But, in that time, a couple people did pass away and the remaining people were moved out. We were evicted and it was shut down. And then about 2 weeks later, the hospice was reopened under the operation of the Fraser Health Authority, and they readmitted people and they operate it to this day.
So what sort of services now do you provide without the hospice building?
Right. I mean, Health Minister Adrian Dix made it very clear that we would not be allowed to ever have a hospice again, that they were taking away from us our reason for being, essentially, right? It was to provide palliative care to people.
So even if you don't do it with any government entanglement, you are still not allowed to have a hospice.
Right. And
you cannot, using charitable dollars, take care of people until the end of their natural life.
No, we cannot. We cannot, probably because, we stood up to the government, I expect, and we were made an example of. In fact, I think that, our supportive care center, which was not funded by that service agreement, but was part of that land lease, we weren't even allowed to keep that. They evicted us from that too. So, I think it was probably to show people that you must comply, that the government policy around this medical assistance in dying, people will not be allowed to do their own thing. They're not allowed. You're not allowed to defy the government.
Okay, so actually in Canada, they're not allowed to put on the death certificate MAID. By law, they have to put on the death certificate your reason you asked for MAID. So if you have cancer, it must say cancer in the death certificate. It cannot say MAID. So that is actually part of the rules of implementing the law that exists right across Canada. And the reason they did that is they were afraid that activists like me would suddenly find out that someone died by MAID and I might be picketing the widow or something, which is, of course, the last thing that would ever happen. Like, believe me, that's an insane idea.
But you would think twice before you let maybe your grandmother use that doctor.
If I knew a doctor was a euthanasia doctor, yeah, not only my grandmother, I would make sure my wife doesn't go there either, and I'll make sure my kids, and definitely my grandkids, they're not going there. Thank you very much. I'm not interested in going to a doctor who's willing to kill me, which is the other thing that's important. It's the crazy segue, but conscience rights. We talk about conscience rights, so the importance of a physician or a nurse having the right of conscience so they don't have to do things that they believe that they consider morally wrong. But conscience rights are actually there for me, the patient. I need to know that my doctor is not going to kill me.
Tell me a little bit about your grandma. She's sitting right there. What kind of person is she?
She's lovely. She's, you know, the sweet grandma that bakes and does all those things. We've had quite a cool life together by playing. She used to play with me when I was little. She says I was her reason to get healthy. We play a lot of cards. We see each other every Saturday. We play cards. We went for a cool cabin trip this Christmas, and she's a lot of fun. We're always laughing. We're always having a good time, and we have a really cool relationship.
Yeah, I think she's lovely. She seems really smart, really spry. But she did get sick and ended up in the hospital. Tell us about that.
Welcome to the Palliative Care Unit at Nanaimo Regional Hospital. We're actually standing at the nursing station here, and this is where patients and families will actually check in when they arrive on the unit. As you can see, the hallway here is very bright. The colors are very calm and restful, very pleasing to the eye. We are pleased in the new facility to also have more private rooms. We currently have 10 private rooms and 1 semi-private room.
Yeah, so a few months ago, she had called my mom to take her to the hospital, and so they went to the hospital. They were for 5 hours. They did some tests. They ran a bunch of things to see what was wrong with her. They didn't really come to any great conclusions, so they thought it was a UTI, and they sent her home with some antibiotics. Sure. And for the next couple of days, she was a little lethargic. She didn't have great energy. She was kind of just feeling under the weather. And my mom came by before she went on a trip to see how she was doing. And my grandma was on the floor in her bedroom. She'd been there for a few hours. So we called the ambulance. They came and picked her up, and they took her to the hospital. She met with a doctor there in the ER who did an ultrasound on her and found out that it wasn't a UTI. It was a kidney block, or a blockage in her kidney, which she's had for her whole life. She's had stents and stuff put in to help with it. And so he figured out that that's what it was. And so a little later, a different doctor came in and said, well, no, it's a UTI because these are the notes. So there'd been no great communication between the two doctors. So they're like, it's a UTI. We're just going to move her to a different floor out of the ER. And that was on a Saturday. On the Sunday, I showed up at about 10 a.m. to see her. Her hands were really hot. Her heart rate was at 122 beats a minute. Her oxygen levels were really low. And I figured something wasn't right. My grandma doesn't really have great circulations due to her condition, so they're generally always a little chill. So I went out to say, you know, who's her nurse? Can I get some help? Something's wrong. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll be there in a minute. 10 minutes later, no one come. I went back out. I said, there's something seriously wrong with my grandma. I mean, I'm no nurse, but I do have level 3 first aid. Her vitals do not look good. can someone come please take a look? They're like, oh yeah, we'll be there in a minute. And I said, well, you guys had said that 10 minutes ago. I really need you guys to come and look at her. So they weren't overly thrilled that I was asking them because they had to break up their conversation. Came in, found out that she had a fever and that she was turning septic because of the blockage in her kidney, which they thought was a UTI.
I just want to stop you right there. You're doing a lot of the talking for your grandma.
Yeah.
Because you don't remember much of this, do you?
No, I don't. No, I don't really. And I think I'm trying not to think about it because I had nightmares for quite a while. For quite a bit. But they know more about it than I do. The thing that distressed me so much is they told me I was going to die and they put me in palliative care.
The doctor that argued that it was a UTI and not a blockage came back and said, well, she's gone septic. There's a procedure we could do, but, you know, older people don't come through it well. And he was really kind of just, you know, call who you need to call because we're just going to keep her comfortable. About half an hour later, I called my uncle. He came in. We were with her. About a half hour later, the surgeon came in. And he's like, oh, well, there's a simple procedure we can do. It's non-invasive. We do it all the time. She'll have a decent recovery out of it. She'll be fine. There'll be no issues. She'll just be in the ICU. And so we were like, the information we were getting is so conflicting. So we got one guy saying,
She's dying.
She's dying.
And the other one saying, I can help her and it'll be easy peasy.
Yes. So we went with it. She went away that evening. Monday morning, she came out of it, and the ICU doctor was like, hey, just so you know, you can't really go home, but if you do, you'll be bedridden. You'll have to have somebody bring you medicine. You won't have a life. You're kind of done based on her heart. Now, to give a little backstory, my grandmother has pulmonary hypertension. So she's got a condition where her heart doesn't pump the blood into her lungs properly because of the pressure. So nobody talked to her specialist about her heart. They were just making these diagnoses off the cuff, which if they don't know, they should have asked. So that was the information she was given. So yet again, she was told she was going to die. So she was in the ICU for about a week. And then they moved her to another floor once the bed opened up. And then one of the palliative doctors came up, talked to her and said, hey, you know, we're going to bring you to palliative. We're going to make you comfortable until the end. So again, told her she was going to be dying. We get her to palliative. And there they talked about MAID and helping her just ease out of it. Again, none of the doctors really communicated with each other about what's going on, what's happening, and any of this other stuff. And so my mom came back from vacation because she cut her vacation short to come home because obviously...
Her mom is dying, according to the doctors.
Right. And so my mom came home and we talked to the one palliative doctor, and she's like, well, we just deal with the acute. We don't really care about anything else. And we're like, well, why wouldn't you? You haven't talked to her heart specialist who knows the most about her heart and all these other things. Why would you not be communicating with him? And they're like, well, we just deal with the acute. And that was her answer. So she just kept ignoring that there could be other options. So the next day, another doctor came into the palliative who was great. She spent over 45 minutes with my grandmother talking to her about, you know, what does she want? What does she needs to feel comfortable? All these other things. And
Not
really
trying to push anything
yeah,
in her.
no, and really just wanting to make her feel like she's being heard for the first time. Everyone else is telling her what's going to happen rather than being asked what she wants to be comfortable and all these things. So my grandmother asked for the catheter to be removed. My grandmother asked to come to see my basketball game, which was quite amazing to have her come out and watch. And she's like, yeah, we can make that totally happen. And that changed everything in my grandma. Like she didn't feel like she was a dying victim anymore. She's like, oh, well, I can do things. I have life again. And so really spent a lot of time with her, making sure they understood what she wanted. And so, you know, roughly a week later, she was back at home with they set up oxygen for her because she was having issues maintaining her oxygen. But she was home, living by herself again, no medical assistance. We got her a lifeline, and she's been great since. And we've been able to go away. We went away for Christmas in a cabin and all of that stuff. And from that was a week later, after being told 4 different times she was going to die. For what reasons? They were just not communicating with each other. They were not really wanting to feel like they do the work, which is really disappointing because I used to have faith in our medical system. You know, it used to be really good, and now it's free, but what does free mean?
Yeah, it's great until you try to use it.
Yeah.
And all it really took was one doctor who listened to you?
Yes.
Now,
And she's a palliative care doctor
Thank
dealing
God.
with death. And she's the one that convinced me that I could live. And she sent me here, got me home. Sorry.
No.
And she got me home. She said, you don't need to be here. You're going to go home. But the fact that I was told I was going to die was just not me being affected, the whole family, you know, and that was so devastating for us. But then the good news was that I was still going to be around.
And of course, your grandson being there, advocating for you. What do you think would have become of you?
I don't know. I hate to think about that. I really do. I don't know whether they'd still leave me in the palliative care and hope that I would go away. But no, this doctor, she saved my life. And it saved all our lives because we're all affected by this. It's not just me fighting a battle, we're all fighting it. I mean, I saw, how many doctors did I see? 5 or 6 doctors. And the last doctor I went to see, Dr. Singh, I asked him, and I said, how did they come to the conclusion that I was going to die? He said, because they didn't really know what to do with you. And that was his answer to me. And I looked at him and I said, that's not good enough. How many other people don't have a family like me where I've got my inquisitive daughter that always asks questions. I've got my grandson and my son. And I think that we all need to be aware that we can ask questions and not be scared to ask questions or tell them what we want. And I think that a lot of people, like you say, go by the wayside because they're scared. Their doctor said this and the doctor said that. Don't be scared just because your doctor said blah, blah, blah. If you're not happy with that or you don't understand, see another doctor. Get another opinion. You know, your life is not just in this doctor's hands. You need to have, you know, the access of going to other doctors and talking to them and tell them how they feel. And I was very fortunate because I did have inquisitive people, like I said, with my daughter, my grandson, and my son, who said they want to know what's going on with me. And they didn't let it go. But I mean, I was a fortunate person. There are a lot of people out there who are alone and having nobody to ask questions about.
If a doctor will euthanize you just hours after being released from a hospital from a suicide attempt, while your family desperately fights to save your life, that doctor will euthanize you for any reason. Perhaps they'll even euthanize you because they just don't want to help you anymore. That's what our veterans have been told. These are the very people who are willing to serve and die for our country. And they're being told it is their duty to die to save a burdened healthcare system and a broken veterans bureaucracy.
And we're live. Hello, all you beautiful souls. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families.
So, Mark, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you become an advocate for veterans?
Not on purpose, It started in 2017. I finally realized I needed help. I'm an Army veteran myself. I was in a war zone, and I went 23 years without being diagnosed. It's a long time. So that got me on the road with Veterans Affairs, but there was a 10-month gap. So I finally reach out for help. I show up at the OSI clinic, that's Operational Stress Injury Clinic, doing everything you're supposed to do, and they go, 10 months before you get to see a therapist. I had a show at the time anyway, and I thought, well, let's scale this stuff. And that's what we did. So I decided on Operation Tango Romeo, stands for trauma recovery. It's just grown and grown and grown. And it's doing everything I wanted it to do. I wanted to take that very important, powerful peer support group and scale it, make it available to whoever wants it.
And you are helping veterans in distress, which is the reason we're sitting down to talk about this. You became one of the people sounding the alarm bells when it was discovered that Veterans Affairs were systemically offering veterans who were calling their caseworkers in distress or for help, instead of offering them help, offering them access to medical assistance in dying. How do you find yourself in the middle of that?
Well, it took me a long time to accept that that's actually what was going on, but because of the show, I'm fairly well known within the veteran population. And a fellow veteran reaches out to me and sends me this audio file that I ignored for a couple of days because I get a lot of emails. Sure. Then he sends me a follow-up text like, hey, have you listened to it? Oh, shit. So I actually listened to the audio file he sends me, and I couldn't believe it. It was the apology call of Veterans Affairs. He recorded the call from Veterans Affairs where they were apologizing for offering him MAID unprompted. So offered to kill him. He was reaching out for help for post-traumatic stress injuries, and traumatic brain injuries, which a lot of us have. And instead of help, as sort of like out of the blue, unprompted, kind of like, would you like fries with that? Like you're trying to supersize the guy. Are you familiar with our MAID program? And what he told me some of the verbiage was, when he started to push back, they said, well, it's better than blowing your brains out against the wall. I'm like, they didn't. He says, oh yeah, they did. No, and that's why they were apologizing for it. During his original phone call with the VAC service agent, somehow in that conversation, he was told, we've done it before and we can do it for you. And the one that we've done it for and has completed MAID, we are now supporting his wife and 2 children.
This is incredibly alarming, to hear this account that, it was pushed upon him, and to the point where it caused him to, be in a far worse place than he was prior to the phone call. But also the fact that we hear there was another veteran that was followed through with in that case, because we weren't obviously informed of that prior.
Well, there is a startling new development in the ongoing controversy around veterans being offered medical assistance in dying. A retired corporal who is paraplegic shocked MPs in Ottawa yesterday when she told them an employee of Veterans Affairs Canada offered her help with arranging a medically assisted death.
For Christine Gauthier, the fight to get a wheelchair lift in her home has been an uphill battle.
I have to crawl down the stairs on my butt with the wheelchair in front of me to be able to access my house.
While pleading her case to a Veterans Affairs case manager over the phone in 2019, she was told something that would leave her feeling shocked.
If things are so hard at this point and you just can't keep going on, and we can assist you with aid to die.
So tell us about everything else around. What were your challenges as an injured veteran? I mean, you're trying to navigate the bureaucracy of Veterans Affairs. What was that like for you?
Well, Sheila, at the beginning, for me, I always,
it's sad to say that I consider that I was one of the lucky ones, because when I first started being on the veteran affair client back in '98, we had it good yet at that time compared to today. You know, the agents that were serving us were Vax agents that knew us, and they knew they you know, we've met and we meet them. They came to our house. They knew our needs and the equipment we needed, and they were there, and they were the one we were calling, and they were the one dealing with the issues and equipment we needed. And I've never had to fight with the DND or VAC to recognize any of my injuries. So I'm thinking how everybody that has to go through these difficulties as well, understanding where I'm at today is even blowing my mind even more, because I didn't have to go and do this. Right off the bat, I was 137% disability. You know, so through time, imagine now, okay, we understand, everybody, you're not going above 100% for money-wise, which I'm not disputing that. It's not the conversation either. But everything was great from the start with that. And Trudeau has destroyed all of this through all the services that they sold out, first to Blue Cross, and then on with the other LifeMark or whatever company it is that we have to go through it now. It is completely out of... It makes no sense at all how bad it is now. I don't know for everybody else, but for me, how bad it has become. And all this, as I am, you know, on the one edge, I am being, like, doing these sports, which is doing well and making look good for Canada, but on the other end, I am fucking begging just to be able to access my house. You know, it's and I'm the type of person who doesn't like to meddle everything together, you know? I like to try to keep things in perspective and separate. You know, whatever was a sport was a sport, and whatever was Veterans Affairs is Veterans Affairs. It is distinct. As much as I'm trying to say that I understand that some agents that I have that are we're talking with on the daily basis are trying. They understand the situation we're in. They're trying to help, but they don't have the means because the system has made it impossible now for us to receive the needs and the care we deserve and we're entitled to get. Because as they say themselves, it doesn't even come through our desk anymore. Whatever has to, you know, whatever we were authorizing before, now it goes through Blue Cross, and they have no way of seeing on it. And it's just gone totally awful. You know, it's...
August 24th, 2015, you made the promise, and I'll quote it here, "No veteran will be forced to fight their own government for the support and compensation they have earned." What veterans were you talking about? Was it the ones that fought for the freedoms and values that you so proudly boast about, or was it the ones who fought against? Because honestly, Mr. Prime Minister, I was prepared to be injured in the line of duty when I joined the military. Nobody forced me to join the military. I was prepared to be killed in action. What I wasn't prepared for, Mr. Prime Minister, is Canada turning its back on me. So which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Why are we still fighting against certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now.
So in 2018, when I moved, I tried to have my wheelchair lift moved and reinstalled where I was moving to. And when it came time to do this, you know, since VAC is always, even though they're not going to take back equipment, we all know, but they stay all the time owners of the equipment. The installers, there's a little bit of old politics in there too. The installers of wheelchair equipment, you won't find any wheelchair equipment installators that will want to install something that is considered used equipment. So nevertheless, they went and asked VAC permission to be able to transfer and reinstall the equipment at the new place. But then that's when shit hit the fan. As they came about, VAC decided, no, first of all, the equipment is over 5 years old, so we need to change it. We're not reinstalling this one. And then they started doing some bureaucracy investigation around it. And then suddenly, somehow, it needed an enclosed elevator because of the distance and the number of the height elevation difference. Before, where it used to be just 4 steps, now, let's say there's like 22 steps, and you can't just have the same lift transferred, even though, in my idea, you could transfer and just change the center shaft, and it's probably doable, but it could not be an outdoor elevator and platform anymore. It needed to become an enclosed. Who decided at this? I don't know, because I'm not allowed to be implicated in any of these details, but nevertheless, between VAC making their documents of it, sending it through provincial government that sent someone over to go to the contractor and have quotes to the city for permits. I'm down 6 years down the road, no elevators to go in and out of my house, having to go up and down all these stairs on my butt with my chair in front of me. And I have completely ruined the rest of the little condition I had. Through all this, just in November, I had MRIs done to both shoulders, both elbows and wrists. It all came back with very severe tears, tendinitis, and it is so damaged up there that, I saw the surgeon in December and he went, "What do you think we can do with this now?" Well, I've been telling you in the past 5 years it was happening, but, of course they were doing cortisone shots, but you can't live off this, and what are you going to do over time? But so now it's like all of this caused because of this not having the proper equipment.
So you call Veterans Affairs asking for your lift so that you can live your life. As you say, you're hauling yourself and your chair up and down your stairs. It's caused such extreme wear and tear on your body. And you call them in distress, asking for the help that they have promised you. And what do they offer you instead?
With respect to MAID, I have a letter in my file because I had to face that as well. I have a letter saying that if you are so desperate, madam, we can offer you MAID, medical assistance in dying.
In July 2021, Gauthier penned a letter to the Prime Minister stating, "If you do not want to allow me to live with autonomy and dignity, put an end to my suffering and my days. But unfortunately, you will need to do it, as my convictions and my faith prevent me from doing so."
So we're trying and fighting and nonstop, asking when is this going to be done? It's unreal. Sending all these letters, and then a VAC agent, which is he was at the time the occupational therapist for the entire district of Montreal, which is the one who has my file in hands. And so I said, "What's going on? This has to happen." I had already received 2 letters of acceptances from VAC at this time. So we're talking, it's like 2021, whatever time, from 18. So in 2019, I had my first letter of expectation. Okay, yes, you can go, we're going to be proceeding with this. Then this guy shows up and he's screwing everything up, wanted to start all over again. So as we're calling him and asking what is happening, I need this equipment. So he just literally told me at this time, Madame Gauthier, because I told him I'm fed up. It has to stop. I'm so depressed. I just can't go on with doing this. And you said, ma'am, Gauthier, you're that depressed about it and you can't go on. You have the right to die. So I just went like, what? Like, seriously? You won't give me my equipment. I need to go on and live, but you're telling me I have the right to die. So, yes, you have to back up in the time that this was when MAID became legal in Canada. But, for him to just come out and mention this like this, what is this? Like, seriously. Give me, don't give me what I need, but tell me that I have the right. No. Unrealistic. It was unrealistic.
Within the pattern of behavior of Canada, what we were seeing is that veterans are often the first to be offered the thing that's experimental, right? So take example, you go on a deployment, you don't really know all the vaccines you're getting. You just know you're getting 5 or 6 in the arm because you're going to a certain country with malaria or give or take whatever the issue is in the country. And so, we run into the idea that we're owned by the military. Once you sign on the dotted line, you take the drugs, you do the things, you march in the right direction. But I had never heard of MAID being used before. I had known about MAID for terminally ill patients, palliative care, really just horrifically painful, slow deaths. And then I said, well, if they're using it on veterans, they're gonna start using it on everyone else. And if they're using it on one veteran or they're trying to use it on a veteran, they're gonna have guaranteed record of using it on others. And sure enough, as soon as we started to dive into it, there was a scary amount of veterans being offered MAID.
This is absolutely unacceptable. And as soon as we heard about this, we took action. We are following up with investigation.
So do you think it is a cost-saving measure? I think it's some of that, but I think some of it is just government bureaucrats who don't want to deal with the thing that we pay them to do, and that is offer help and support to our veterans when they call.
Well, because look at what happens, right? So you had Iraq happen, then you had SF in there in Canada, and then you had Afghanistan happen. Now you had Afghanistan. Canada was turning and burning people. We were on real rotations for a lot of years. And you have a significant amount of people affected by that within the country. And not a lot of people realize how many Canadians actually deployed. In comparison to Americans, it's barely any. But when you look at the amount of injured coming back from a mental health disorder, we weren't seeing the same amount of people come back with missing limbs. Of course, we were seeing that, but like Brock, who was told that he was asking too much. I mean, you were seeing people come home at a pace with mental health issues that was hard to sustain. Furthermore, our government, our individuals didn't know how to handle it. So why would they take accountability? Why would they say, hey, we actually have a bigger problem here? That I think it's a cost thing, but I also think it's for the people in power that pulled the pin to send all the innocent kids over to go kill other innocent kids. There's a part of them that's put that behind them. Like, it's over, it's done with. We left a long time ago. We shouldn't have to worry that much about them. It's not that big of a deal. Retention rates are terrible in the military. People are leaving left, right, and center. And then you have the mental health group, that group of people that was in Afghanistan on crazy rotations. You've got a lot of people. If you openly admit that you were a part of that problem, then you're openly taking responsibility. And we know for a fact that our people in power do not take responsibility for anything.
Right.
So it's a financial save, a lack of responsibility, and then it's completely easy to just offer it to vulnerable individuals, and then they're gonna take it. March 2024, medical assistance in dying was set to expand to include those solely suffering from mental illness. The expansion, however, has been pushed back, but not canceled. It was pushed back for 2 separate reasons. First, the already overburdened system cannot meet the demand of mentally ill people wanting to die. These are people whose needs are not being served within our mental health system. The second reason is the moral quandary that doctors find themselves in. Which suicidal patient needs help to live, and which one needs help to die? Who needs the toxic cocktail of suicide drugs, and who needs the medicine of hope? We were talking earlier today, Kian and I, about how the certain aspects of euthanasia remove the barriers that a lot of people find stops them from committing suicide. We hear a lot of anecdotal stories of people saying, I was suicidal, but I didn't commit the act because I didn't want my mom to find me in the closet, or I was worried that nobody would find my body or that it would hurt. But now we see with euthanasia, those barriers are being removed entirely, that the doctor says it won't hurt. Your family's all going to be gathered around, or a doctor will be there with you. So all those barriers are removed. Do you think that that is going to accelerate the amount of people adopting MAID?
Yes, I mean, I think there are no barriers for going forward. And in fact, you're encouraged. If anyone raises that issue, if they want to explore it, the MAID team is contacted and you move down that process really quickly, and it's very hard to stop. There was some, it's very hard to stop that process. People are expecting, they don't want to disappoint the doctor who's going to show up, and so they go forward. And it's very hard then when you are feeling already very demoralized, you are suicidal, you're unsure of how the future is going to be, and everyone is suggesting you go forward, that this is a good thing. The brakes are off. And we see that, it looks like we have over 13,000 deaths in 2023. It's going up exponentially in our country. And I think for some people in this country, every death should be a euthanized death, because it's clean and convenient and quick, and we don't have to spend money on it.
Yes. We're hearing that the other side of this debate talks of the healthcare savings. Yes. Like human lives are just dollars and cents. And as we have an aging population and there's a rise of lifestyle-related illnesses that are uncomfortable, this seems like a way to fix the broken healthcare system.
I think it's an easy out for people.
It was always the case that mental illness was going to be considered, and it was always going to be the case that it was going to be taken seriously. We have to distinguish which cases where there's a possibility of improvement, when the symptom of perhaps wanting to die is part of the condition itself.
Suicide prevention versus medical assistance in dying. I don't know how, when finally medical assistance in dying, and I say finally because it will, be expanded to encompass the mentally ill. How will doctors ever be able to determine if this person is suicidal in requirement of treatment versus somebody who qualifies for MAID? How will they ever be able to make that distinction?
I don't know, and I don't think there is a meaningful distinction to be made. When we try to figure out if a mental disorder is irremediable or not, we're only right about 47% of the time. So we're wrong more than half the time. It'd be more accurate to flip a coin to guess whether someone's going to be able to recover from a mental health disorder or not. And when we look at the criteria for diagnosing clinical depression, suicidal ideation is one of the diagnostic criteria for depression. How do you make some distinction between this person who wants to end their own life is being rational and this person has a mental health struggle and they need support? It's an artificial distinction, and I think that the distinction is more about us as a society than it is about the individual person. It's our society saying that we think some people are better off dead and some people are better off alive, and making a judgment that creates second-class citizens, denying people an equal right to suicide prevention. So I don't think there is any real distinction to be made. I think that it's an artificial distinction that's more about our own judgments and fears as a society that we then put into law and put into practice so that some people get suicide prevention, but other people get suicide assistance.
Are you able to explain to me the difference between suicidality that requires help and a desire to access MAID?
No, I think they're the exact same thing. And most psychiatrists, if they're honest, will tell you they're the exact same thing. there's no medical evidence for that. There's no scientific evidence for that. And to suggest that there is just doing everyone a disservice.
Canadians are expecting us to get the job done.
Suicide is very misunderstood because, there can be numerous reasons that someone wants to end their life. Some of them are people in positions of crisis. You've seen examples of someone who's about to be criminally convicted and they end their life. And in other cases, they are the product of very prolonged battles with mental illness. So when I was going back to my early teens, I've always struggled in some form with a mental illness. And I don't even like using diagnostic labels. I'd say it falls under the banner of depression, but it manifests in different ways, and depression looks different to different people. And, there were a number of situations in my life where I thought about killing myself, made, I'll say, more half-hearted and ill-planned attempts at a couple of points. But in 2010, I was 21 years old, and I made an attempt that was very nearly successful. I overdosed on a large volume of prescription medications, and I ended up in the hospital for about 7 weeks. I was in a coma for much of it, and at various points I had to be resuscitated. And, my family, my loving parents by my side in the hospital, not knowing if they were going to lose one of their sons, was a gut-wrenching experience. And, it's easy to look at something like that and say how callous and how selfish, and I would agree in a lot of ways, except that part doesn't factor in to the calculation when you're in the midst of that. I love my parents. I didn't want to exact any harm on them or revenge. There was nothing like that. So I have to go back and say, well, how on earth did that desire to end my life, how was that so powerful that I didn't care about the effect of it, that I didn't care about the hole I would leave? And that's a useful question because it just reminds me of just how not right I was and how not right what I was going through was. And, I was convinced that I was better off dead than alive. I was convinced that there was no hope, that there was no future, that I was a burden, that I should not exist, that, my life was never going to get better, that the life I have now, which I would not trade for anything, was not possible. So that is in and of itself proof that what feels irremediable, when you're talking about diseases of the mind, when you're talking about mental illness, what feels irremediable is itself a symptom. It's a distortion of your reality. And in a lot of cases, certainly in my case, wanting to die was a distorted view of reality. And I'm convinced that if the policies that the Liberal government has committed to on MAID were around in 2010, I would be dead right now. And it would have been a doctor that killed me instead of myself.
The data shows that people who are asking for MAID are not doing it because of physical suffering. They're doing it because of a lack of meaningful participation. So these are not deaths of suffering. These are deaths of despair.
Correct. That's exactly what the data says. And you hear actually also some of the studies coming out of the euthanasia lobby that are admitting that these people are going through often these feelings of hopelessness. It's been confirmed even by the other side. Of course, they believe this is a right and a freedom and everything else, so they think, let's just continue with the killing. But there are, of course, some people who are going through significant pain. I understand that. I've never denied that. I would never deny that. But the data shows that that number is actually quite small. There is another cohort of people who are in fear of future suffering. So they are in fear of what might happen, even though what's happening today is not so painful or difficult on them. But they're in fear of getting to a place that could be like that. And it's easy to be made to fear that way because, we've heard enough promos by the euthanasia lobby of people in difficult health conditions where we're told that they're just going to suffer, suffer, suffer. So when you start thinking about that, you're thinking, I got to avoid that suffering. Maybe I'm better off dead.
The senator who called for the change in the first place says it's discrimination not to include the mentally ill.
So in fact, the concept of this whole thing is very different from what was sold to us. The reality is very different. Most of the people, yes, they're going through a difficult health condition. No one's arguing that. Some of them actually aren't going through such a difficult health condition, but they are wanting to die, and they do have certain irremediable medical conditions, which then they have a doctor who's very pro-death who's willing to do it to them. So that all happens. But the fact of it is most of the people, this is based on their emotions. This is based on their psychological reality. They're feeling that there is no more purpose. Well, do you kill people based on their lack of feeling of purpose?
Good morning. I just had an opportunity to table legislation with respect to medical assistance in dying, where mental illness is sole underlying cause, with a 3-year extension. It will allow in 2 years for there to be a parliamentary review to assess the state of readiness of the system at this time. I can say that I have communicated with all of my provincial counterparts. I haven't had an opportunity with my territorial counterparts on this, but their response was very favorable, as I think you'll hear. They really do feel that they need more time to be able to look at this. I will state again that the question at issue here is a question of readiness. We accept equivalency in the suffering of mental suffering and physical suffering.
We will not be ready to do this in 3 years. And how do we determine whether somebody needs counseling for their suicidality or euthanization?
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely correct. I've concluded that not only are Canadians not okay with expanding MAID to the mentally ill, there isn't even a consensus within the mental health community. And it is for the reasons, one of the reasons is the one you mentioned, the issue of suicidality, the fine distinction between being suicidal and making a conscious, rational decision to end your own life. And remember, in Canada, we have this federal program supported by all the parties, which is a suicide prevention program. We even implemented recently the 988 suicide hotline to prevent people from taking their own lives and getting them the help they need. And yet, in such a contradictory fashion, we're saying, yeah, but you know what? If you really want to take your own life, we'll facilitate it. The government will even pay for it. The other issue is that the Carter decision made it very clear you had to have an irremediable condition. In other words, incurable. That is easier to do when we're talking about a physiological illness. A psychological illness, a mental illness, is very, very different. And virtually every mental health professional will tell you that, is that it is virtually impossible when it comes to mental illness to determine whether a person can or cannot become healthy again, become better. So the issue of irremediability has not been resolved within the mental health community, yet the government is hell-bent on charging forward and implementing this legislation without taking into account that, listen, if you really want to do this right, you don't want to have certainty on those issues that befuddle even the mental health professionals.
We have to get this right. This is extremely challenging. This is enormously sensitive. And frankly, we want to have a uniformity and an approach so that when this happens, it's available all across the country.
The expansion of medical assistance in dying in Canada to include the mentally ill has been delayed until 2027. Canada's Conservative Party has promised to stop the expansion when or if they take power. But that's not enough. Politicians cannot address the underlying problem that brought us here. That as a society, we have forgotten that sickness, suffering, loneliness, and even death are all part of the human condition. Natural human conditions that we should face together. The families left behind don't get a choice, but you do.
Meanwhile, over at St. Paul's, even after billions of tax dollars are spent building a replacement hospital, it won't be required to perform any assisted dying because it's considered a faith-based hospital and is exempt.
So what's happening with St. Paul's is that the government is going to build a euthanasia facility right next door. And this is already such an encroachment on the otherwise safe haven of St. Paul's Hospital. There's a doctor who works at St. Paul's, and he faces a lot of controversy among his colleagues, but how he's navigated maintaining his conscientious objection is saying, as soon as you can show me how euthanasia contributes to the health of my patient, I will do it cheerfully. But if you can't, then I won't. And that is a clear argument for why euthanasia is always the wrong prescription and the wrong treatment. Death is never a treatment befitting the person because it never contributes to the person's health. And so St. Paul's is one example of trying to be a sanctuary, a safe haven from euthanasia where the patient's good is always at the center. And we need such places where people can trust that their doctors and nurses will not even suggest it, because already to be suggested euthanasia is, in a sense, it's almost like a first killing of the person. It's so deflating and it's so denigrating to have euthanasia even raised. This really is an affront against the person's self-esteem because it says perhaps you don't need to exist. Perhaps it would be better for you not to. And that is so demoralizing. Nobody deserves to be told that.
You've really made this your young life's work, but what tangible advice can you give to Canadians and anybody who might see this to perhaps make a difference in the lives of someone who is considering euthanasia? Because, you know, as we make this documentary, we are hearing more and more stories, and the stories are very different, but the common thread is they are hopeless or frustrated. And so they feel, as you say, that they might be better off dead. You know, what can we do as people who care about this issue to make a difference to those people?
One of the ways is to find ways that we need people in our lives. We all have a need to be needed, and having some elevating expectations can call a person out of that sense of despair, out of that sense of hopelessness, to show up and play that role in the family and the community that they otherwise might not be playing. Sometimes just being needed is enough for someone to revoke their request to die. I heard a story just this morning about that someone had been approved for euthanasia, but as soon as his family members needed some legal help, and he had a legal background and was able to assist, he canceled the request because he was able to be of service to his family, and he found a way to be needed. And so finding ways to indicate to people that I need you in my life, because that's very affirming. One thing that comes to mind very often is Viktor Frankl and man's search for meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and he wrote the best-selling book, Man's Search for Meaning. A lot of people admire Holocaust survivors for their resilience, and rightly so. If we think about it, the people who were victims of the Holocaust suffered such a degree of suffering that they would have certainly been found eligible for euthanasia. And if they had been euthanized, we would have had no Holocaust survivors to get to know over these years. And that really strikes me. We value resilience. And in fact, I think we can help find meaning in suffering by realizing that there is, in fact, no good story without suffering.
So first of all, there is the clarion call going out to everyone that you must care for your own. Now, what am I saying? We have a helpline. People call that helpline. And so when they call the helpline, obviously, they're open to talking to us. They don't know me from anything. And you're talking to me because they saw that there was a number of friends that you should call this helpline, and they talk to us. And we try and help them through their difficult situation in whatever ways possible. But if you know somebody, then you have an open window in their life because you know them. And we need to recognize that if your neighbor is going through significant illness, you should be visiting them. You should be talking to them. You should be spending time with them, because they might be in that exact same boat where they're feeling like, what is the purpose and meaning in my life anyway? But when you come over and you say, I'm so glad, I'm sorry for how you're feeling, but I'm so glad to have this opportunity to talk to you. You know, let's spend time together. Let's play some cards together. Let's spend time. Let's be, you know, interconnected human beings. Guess what? Suddenly they feel a reason to live. There was a very important story of a young woman who was going to a nursing home. She was working, but she had every Friday off, so she was going to that nursing home every Friday. And the one elderly woman said to her, you know, I've been thinking of, you know, medical aid in dying might be a good idea. And she said, that would be a terrible idea. And the woman says, well, why would that be a terrible idea? And she said, because I come to see you every Friday. Well, if you wouldn't be here, I'd miss you. And the woman thought, well, then I guess you're right. It would be a terrible idea. You know, someone actually said, you're important to me. You created meaning by saying, you have meaning in my life. You know, this is a culture of loneliness. Think about it. We have nursing homes. You go to the nursing home and you ask the front desk, how many of the people here don't get any visits? You'd be shocked. And then we're wondering why euthanasia rates are going through the roof. Because you've abandoned these people. They're alone, they're lonely, they're going through difficult times. It's insanity that we're at this state in our culture. And guess what? You can make a difference in someone's life. Will we always make a difference in someone's life? Well, we can try. Often we will. Sometimes we won't. I've talked to many people who have wanted euthanasia, and I've talked to them, and I've let them call me back again and again and again and again. And just that there's somebody else on the line willing to listen to them changes their mind.
For me, coming from a place where I was diagnosed with depression when I was 13, I've had 2 suicide attempts in my 20s. There's hope. If MAID had been around then, I don't know if I would be here. And now I have a beautiful life. I have a beautiful 6-month-old son, and it's not easy, but it's worth it. Advocate for yourself. Push your doctors, try different therapies. Hope, there's hope. You just need to find the right support and keep trying.
And also, mental illness is not something to be ashamed of. You know, we talk about, you know, getting rid of the stigma, and the only way to do that is to talk about these things often and early. And if you start having these thoughts, don't keep it to yourself. Don't wait until it's too late, like my mom did. She was so proud that she was a psychiatric nurse of all people that, you know, when her own mental health was questioned, her ego couldn't deal with that, you know? She didn't want to be looked at like people used to look at her patients. And there is no shame. There's no shame in this. There are MPs that are pushing for this that attempted suicide when they were younger, and they know what it's like my sister, to be on the other side of this. There are people that love you and care about you and support you. I promise every person in this world has someone who cares about them, and it is worth fighting for. If not for you in this moment, fight for them, because if you leave this world, you're gonna be leaving those people that love you, like my mom left us. And we will never, ever get over it. You know, so if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the people that love you.
You can't worry about what the rest of the population thinks about us. We're not the type that normally care about that. And you need to realize that you're not the burden. You're not a burden. You've never been. You're not now. You won't be. You're just hurt. And hurt people can heal. And when you realize that you can heal from this, even if you see no light ahead of you, and most of us don't for a really long time. You have to remember that in the darkness, there is light if you look for it. There is a community of us that want to see you heal. You have to reach out and ask for help. And that is the bravest thing you will ever do. I see these grown men, these special operators say, this guy needs it more than I do. This guy needs it more than I do. No, you need it. You need it. You need the help. You need to take the help. You need to take it because you deserve it, because you served and you did your duty. Your family deserves it. Your family will never be able to fill that void when you're not here. Don't ever think for a single second that they will be better off. Your children will have no father. You will miss everything. You will miss every opportunity, and your children will grow up with the stain that my dad killed himself. And then they're gonna question, why wasn't I enough to stay? It's like a drop in an ocean. It may seem like nothing, but the ripple effects that will leave for the rest of your community you cannot heal from. But you can get better. You can heal from these things, even when they tell us that you can't. You just have to reach out and ask for help, because it sounds really cheesy and really lame, and I laughed at it when I was in that position, and it was just obnoxious to think, there's no way I'm gonna get past this. You have to remember who you are before you got hurt.
One thing that comes to mind is a story of a friend of mine who shared about her difficult experience with bipolar. And she says that had euthanasia been available when she was going through her deepest, darkest experience of depression, she would have walked across Canada on broken glass to seek it out. She was really, really struggling. And what gave her hope was that someone came alongside and said, this is the hardest thing that you've ever had to go through. And I see what you're doing. Thank you for choosing life. I would say then, thank you for choosing life with every moment, with every breath, as hard as it is, as painful as it is, because that is an act of courage. That is a message to the next generation, and that is an act of love in favor of your family who wants you in their life, and your community who wants you in your life. You may not always feel it, you may not always see it, but you have a place here, and you have something to give to the world that nobody else can give. It can't be outsourced and it can't be replaced. You have a unique and unrepeatable contribution to make in the world, and we're counting on you.
We cannot turn away from this misery, because this misery is spreading across Canada and then beyond. The implications of medical assistance in dying stretch outside of Canada's borders. Some Americans, often champions of individual liberty, are watching what's unfolding here in Canada with horror, recognizing the threat posed by unchecked government interference into our healthcare decisions. And still, other American jurisdictions are considering walking down the same grim road Canada is already on. Medical assistance in dying is not help, it's homicide. It's the dark side of Canadian compassion. It's a pit of despair and desperation where people in unimaginable circumstances are driven to desperate, unthinkable choices. While government policies may not change, we can. Let us safeguard the sanctity of life, for in the face of darkness, it is our duty to shine a light. To the fatal disease of terminal hopelessness, we must be the cure for each other.
Do you have a message for the politicians from a family that has already experienced what they're about to crack wide open to the rest of the country?
They need to get their head out of their asses. Like, you can't pretend this isn't happening. And you can't pretend that it's dignity in dying. It's not death with dignity. You need to look at the bigger picture and don't vote based on favoritism of what you think is going to get you elected.
And don't be a sheep just because your political party is supporting something.
Stand up.
Stand up for what you believe in. This isn't right. This isn't morally right that children should be allowed to choose whether or not they live or die. That a person who actually just needs help should be pushed MAID. This shouldn't be happening. I would like to say to them, wait until it's your turn.
Yeah.
Because it's coming soon. No one is escaping this. Every single person in this country is going to know someone and they're going to be affected by it. You wait until your 13-year-old wants to die because they're depressed. Wait. Then they'll do something about it.